Is there a bloodline that proves the existence of a mysterious hybridization event? Some independent researchers believe so. According to this extraordinary hypothesis, people with the Rh negative blood type would have a direct genetic connection with ancient ancestors, whose origins are, however, unknown. But what is so special about this blood type, and what sets it apart from all the others? And why would this be proof of an ancient genetic manipulation project? Lately, there has been a lot of talk on the internet about the Rh negative factor and its possible implications, and this has given rise to various theories. Well, today we will take a journey to the limits of knowledge and analyze some possible extraordinary hypotheses. But before we set off on this fascinating journey, if you haven't done so yet, we invite you to subscribe to the channel to support our work and not miss our new videos. Blood, the fluid that brings life and flows through our veins, carries with it a series of secrets and mysteries that tell a very ancient story. Among the unsolved mysteries, there is certainly the blood type known as Rh negative. Only a very small part of the world's population has this unique trait. This characteristic, along with many others that we will talk about in the video, has captured the imagination of many researchers and has given rise to various myths, theories, and speculations. But to truly understand the reasons why some see the Rh negative blood type as proof of an ancient event of genetic manipulation, we first need to understand what it means to have this blood type. And to do that, we need to travel back in time, specifically to the early years of the 20th century. In 1901, Karl Landsteiner discovered blood groups. His discovery revolutionized transfusion medicine by providing, for the first time, a scientific explanation for the adverse reactions that occurred after blood transfusions. Before Landsteiner's discovery, in fact, blood transfusions were risky procedures, often with fatal outcomes because the existence of incompatible blood groups was unknown. Landsteiner identified that the red blood cells of some people would agglutinate when mixed with the serum of others. He classified human blood into 3 groups, which he called A, B, and O. A few years later, 2 of his colleagues, Alfred von Fondecastello and Adriano Sturli, discovered a 4th group, which they called AB. This classification is based on the presence or absence of antigens on the surface of specific red blood cells. In 1937, researchers Karl Landsteiner and Alexander Wiener added a new category. In fact, they discovered the Rh factor. The 2 scientists set out to better understand the basis of compatibility and incompatibility in human blood. And during some experiments conducted with the blood of certain primates, particularly the rhesus macaque, Landsteiner and Wiener came across a new antigen that they found present in some blood samples. This antigen triggered an immune reaction when blood containing the antigen, later identified as Rh positive, was transfused into an organism that did not have the antigen, identified as Rh negative. The discovery of the Rh factor made it possible to shed light on some unexplained diseases, such as hemolytic disease of the newborn. This occurs when an Rh negative mother is pregnant with an Rh positive fetus. The positive factor is inherited from the father. At this point, the mother's immune system can produce antibodies against the Rh positive red blood cells of the embryo, and these can cross the placenta and destroy the fetus's red blood cells, leading to anemia, jaundice, fetal edema, and, in the most severe cases, death. To recap, if we follow the ABO and Rh blood classification, we have 8 main possible blood groups: A positive and negative, B positive and negative, AB positive and negative, and O positive and negative. But if there are different blood groups, what makes the Rh negative group so mysterious? The Rh negative blood group represents a mystery, as it seems to have evolved from a different evolutionary line compared to the other blood groups. Official science actually considers the AB and O blood groups to be the oldest, meaning they have been present since the origins of humanity. The Rh negative group, on the other hand, is believed to have appeared later, in a relatively recent period, estimated to be about 30 to 40,000 years ago, during the Upper Paleolithic, but the reasons why it suddenly appeared are not known. Clearly, human blood, like any other part of our DNA, is potentially subject to genetic mutations. However, unlike other genes in our DNA, those related to blood appear to be much more stable than the other genes that make up the genome. Mutations that alter blood groups tend to be much less common and are subject to stricter selection, because any mutation in the blood inevitably puts the survival of the species at risk. We see this, for example, in hemolytic disease of the newborn, when an Rh-positive mother gives birth to an Rh-negative fetus inherited from the father. When this happens, the mother's immune system may interpret the fetus as a foreign body and therefore attacks it, trying to eliminate it. For some independent researchers, however, this would be evidence of the existence in the distant past of a hybridization event that involved an unknown people carrying this unusual factor in hominids. But how did they come to this conclusion? As we were saying, there are several aspects that make the origin of the Rh-negative factor mysterious and unclear. One of these, for example, is its geographical distribution. The distribution varies greatly among different populations around the world. For example, it is relatively more common in Europe, particularly among the Basque population, and much less common in Africa and Asia. The Rh-negative factor therefore represents a minority trait in the global population, but in some regions of the world, it is mysteriously more widespread. The Basque region stands out, with rates reaching as high as 30% of the population, compared with an average of 15% in Europe and 3% in the rest of the world. In this small strip of land, straddling Spain and France, there is the highest concentration of people with Rh-negative blood type, a very specific place where an ancient and mysterious people live, the Basques. However, Rh negativity is not the only mysterious peculiarity of the Basque people. Another aspect that distinguishes this population is their culture and language. In fact, these seem to have an origin different from all other European languages and cultures, which makes the Basque people a genetic and cultural enigma. These mysterious aspects have attracted the attention of many researchers who have tried to investigate the possible origin of these people. And among the many hypotheses put forward over the years, there is one extraordinary and fascinating one. The Basques would be the direct descendants of the mysterious people of Atlantis, or rather, they would be the descendants of a few survivors of the cataclysm that swallowed the mythical island continent in the ocean. But what do the Basques and their genetic peculiarity have to do with the island described by Plato? As we were saying, the Basques have an unknown language, different from all other European languages, and the prevalence of a mysterious genetic anomaly that concerns their blood. These peculiarities have led several scholars to look for similarities with other populations around the world, and surprises were not long in coming. Some researchers have actually identified specific similarities between the Basque language and those of some indigenous South American populations. The two languages seem to have some very specific features in common. There is another interesting detail to add. These populations also seem to have a higher prevalence of the Rh-negative factor than the average in the regions where they live. But how could these populations have come into contact thousands of years ago? As far as we know today, it's not possible that this could have happened. To this, we must add that an unusual negative factor has also been found in other populations, such as the Berbers of the Moroccan Atlas, coastal groups settled in Wales, Scotland, Ireland, the Netherlands, and the inhabitants of the Canary Islands, all populations located along or near the coasts of the Atlantic, the place where the island of Atlantis is said to have been. It is also very curious that near the places where these populations live, the remains of mysterious megalith can be found. The Andean Quechua and Aymara peoples, for example, not only have a higher frequency of the negative factor, but also live near the sites of Tiwanaku and Pumapunku. places that are still enigmatic today and that seem to have been built by a very ancient and mysterious civilization. Researchers who support this theory add another fascinating detail. Official science indicates that the appearance of the negative factor occurred roughly 30 to 40,000 years ago, during the Paleolithic era. This historical period is not new to those who study mythology. The Greek historian Eusebius, for example, quoting Manetho, a priest of the Temple of Heliopolis and keeper of the sacred archives, places the beginning of Egyptian civilization in 30,544 BC. But what do the Egyptians have to do with the Atlanteans? If we go to Egypt and read the inscriptions in the Temple of Edfu, we discover that the ancient Egyptians were nothing more than the heirs of divine beings who came from a place beyond the Pillars of Hercules. These divine beings are said to have founded civilization and created mankind. After all, it was Plato himself who, during his stay in Egypt, learned from the Egyptian priests the ancient story of Atlantis, which he would later recount in his very famous treatises.
In that sea beyond the Pillars of Hercules, there was an island larger than Libya and Asia combined. And from this island, one could travel to the other islands, and from the islands to the entire continent that stretches out in front of them and surrounds that true sea. But following earthquakes and floods of exceptional violence, in a single day and night of misfortune, the island of Atlantis disappeared, swallowed by the sea, and from then on, it became impossible to sail and find one's way.
Is it therefore possible that a genetic trace of this ancient people has survived to the present day, and that it can be found in the mysterious negative blood group? According to some researchers, things would have happened this way. The negative blood group would be proof of the existence in ancient times of another species, which evolved separately from humans. The latter would in fact be the result of hybridization between the members of this advanced civilization, which myths describe as deities, and the humans present on Earth at that time. Clearly, this whole story is fascinating, but it should be taken with a grain of salt. Those who are familiar with our videos know that we consider the existence of ancient and advanced civilizations to be very likely. But in this case, we believe that this whole story should be taken with caution, because there are no in-depth studies that can confirm or refute this reconstruction. Regarding the origin of the Rh-negative blood group, for the sake of completeness, we have to say that there are many other theories and hypotheses. For example, it is said that those who have this blood group possess certain peculiarities, such as above-average intelligence or inexplicable supernatural abilities, or that this is a characteristic of royal families or of men who hold power. But for all of this, at least for now, we haven't found any evidence or precise documentation. What we can say for sure, however, is that negative blood types remain a mystery, and their origin has not been fully clarified by science and is still being studied today. But whether it is a random mutation that happened thousands of years ago, and despite all the problems, has survived to the present day, or whether it is the remnant of evidence of extraordinary events that happened in the distant past, we can't help but be fascinated by knowing that a part of our history, still waiting to be written, flows through our veins. Now, we're really curious to explore this topic with you and hear your opinion. Write in the comments what you think about it. And if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel to support our work. See you in the next story.